Don't you love math? Don't you? Oh, good morning and happy Tuesday from this Tuesday baby at Radically Rational and radicallyrational.com. Math influences everything. Verdine White knows that, the basis for Earth, Wind, and Fire. Music is just math and rhythm and common sense and logic. With that in mind, remember when common sense and logic and thinking used to be a prerequisite to become an NFL head football coach? What in the wide world of sports is going on here? And this started last year, and it's inexplicable. All of a sudden, it became fashionable to go for it on fourth down when there's no reason to, and in fact, it's dangerous and counterproductive, and especially to decide to go for two when there's no reason to, and in fact, it's dangerous and counterproductive. Can they not add? We've seen some egregious stuff, but last night the Raiders score with 4.5 minutes remaining on the road at Arrowhead. They're within one at 30-29, and they elect to go for two. And why? Well, because the players wanted to do it. Players don't get a vote. You get paid to think. Of course, the players are going to say that, and God love them for it, because that's the way they're built. But you got to think. WWCLD. What would Coach Landry do? He would think rather than emote. All right, so think about this. There's no upside to going for two in that situation. Let's say you get it. Okay, you're up by one with 4.5 minutes remaining. You haven't been able to stop Mahomes in the second half, and one way or the other, you're going to have to get a stop anyway. Okay, so why not, just as belt and suspenders, one more possible path to victory, keep the door open, kick the PAT, and that way overtime is still in play. But you go for it, you don't make it, you're in an all or nothing situation, and even if you had made it, you were guaranteed nothing. And this is going on all over the place. And I have created a special dunce corner for the Royal Order of NFL Mindless Machismo. Josh McDaniels last night, Zach Taylor, chronic. Brandon Staley, who is maybe the worst offender of all, John Harbaugh, Nathaniel Hackett, and of course, Cliffy Kingsbury. What are you thinking? Look, analytics make sense in baseball because baseball is a stat sport. And you play 162 games and these things even out over time, and playing those percentages makes sense. But there are a lot more moving parts in football. There are a lot more things that you have to be sensitive to just at a gut level or a seat of the pants level, okay? And you can't constantly refer to this analytics chart and say you're off the hook. You are required to think a little bit. Kick the damn PAT. Now, I know what you're gonna say. Well, even Andy Reid went for two unnecessarily earlier in the game. And you're right. You got a case there. The only thing I would say is that maybe Reid was taking into account how shaky his kicking situation has been of late. Look, I'm all for protecting NFL quarterbacks, and here's the reason. They are the product. In this sense, NFL football typically is so wonderful, but if the quarterback is not available or the quarterback can't do his thing, nobody else can, and the product gets diluted horribly. So I'm for protecting quarterbacks up to a point. But you can't breathe on Tom Brady? And the thing with Chris Jones last night, as he gently escorts Derek Carr to the ground, and he gets lit up on that, guys, there are going to have to be some adjustments there because we're bending over backwards too far the wrong direction. I almost think that getting fired is the best thing that could have happened to Matt Rule. Matt Rule is a wonderful college football coach, and he's going to get a chance to be a college football coach again. The Astros open up today in the playoffs, game one against the Mariners, which means I'm going to have to buy Rolaids by the gross because postseason baseball just tears my stomach up. And speaking of tearing my stomach up, the remarks by a U.S. Senator, Tommy Tuberville, I am amazed that that's not getting even more attention and more rejection. It is patently racist. There's nothing subtle about it. It is racist appealing to racists to see who can be the biggest racist, because to be the biggest racist is to lead the racist parade, and that's what they're actively seeking. That was his purpose. I want to be perceived as king racist. And let me use a word that a lot of Trumpers use all the time, mainstream. You want mainstream? Blatant, venomous racism is now the mainstream position in the GOP, and you can't argue that. You cannot contest that at all. Greg Abbott, by the way, you are a coward. And we started this by talking about math skills. Let me get back to math skills. Trumpers, you can't win. The math isn't there. What you fail to realize, and you fail to perceive this in 2020, you're not in the majority. You're not. And the math is just not going to work. And the biggest problem is that Trump is rightly perceived as stone, legitimate, clinically, medically crazy. Well, you don't overcome that by saying that George H.W. Bush took millions of documents to a former bowling alley and Chinese restaurant, and you don't lessen the perception that you're nuts by embracing Q. The math just isn't there. Okay, everybody, let's count it off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Math, music, rhythm, logic. Happy Tuesday. We are radically rational.